Toastmost includes a digital voting tool which you can use to collect votes on best speaker, best evaluator, or anything else that people might be voting on during your meetings. I've used this for years at Online Presenters Toastmasters. It works well in an online club, and recently I've made it work better for in-person and hybrid meetings as well by introducing the idea that you can scan a QR code to get to the ballot. Here's how that works. So I take my paper agenda, I aim my phone at it, at the QR code, I see the little link, I click there, it's going to open up a ballot, and from here I'm going to see the available choices, and I just tap the button next to the one that I would like to vote for. For demo purposes, I'm signed into the demo website on Toastmost, and I'm actually going to be playing two different roles. So I'm logged into Chrome as myself, but if I go over to Firefox, I'm logged in as Ralph C. Smedley. So Ralph C. Smedley is the person who's going to take the role of vote counter in this meeting. And if nobody has been assigned for vote counter, he can click here and appoint himself to that role within the voting tab. I could also sign up over here so that now the name is on the agenda. And when I go back here, we should see a different view. So this is the ballot setup view for the vote counter. Everybody else is going to see just the ballot. So these three speakers were on the agenda, so they're automatically added to the ballot for speaker. But, things change. Sometimes maybe this person didn't show up and somebody else took on that speaking slot. And so we can make changes. We can delete somebody off the agenda and add them. And we can publish this. And once a ballot is published, we can copy the voting link. And so this is where I'm going to go into Zoom. This is the way I typically have been doing it at Online Presenters. But again, the point of the QR code method, QR code on the agenda, is that we can use this more easily in an in-person or a hybrid meeting. So I'll post the link here. Other members are going to see that pop up. It's a little message that says, please click on this link to load the ballot. Now for subsequent votes, when I add additional ballots that are available to be voted on for table topics and best evaluator and all those things, that should just show up automatically, but there's also a refresh button that people can click on. So I'll click in here. So in this scenario, I am not the vote counter. I'm just a person who's been invited in to cast a vote. So we can potentially have guests at our meeting also sign in. They don't need a login for this. They just need to follow that link and they will be able to vote for their choice. Now, if I go back to the vote counter's role, so we can read in the speakers, we can read in the evaluators from the agenda. Table topics, at least the way it's done in my club, nobody knows who's going to be chosen for table topics until the meeting starts. So this is where the vote counter needs to be paying attention. And as these people are speaking, called on to speak, do speak, we're going to add them to the agenda. And again, we can publish this. And let me switch to my view as a regular member. Actually, when I came back to this screen, those three choices just showed up. If they didn't show up right away, I could click the refresh button to poll the server to see if any new ballots are available. And again, I can vote. So we have a few things predefined on the list for the typical things that you might vote on at the meeting. But, my home club also has a word of the day contest that they do. So when the grammarian announces the word of the day, two people are invited to come up and give a snappy, creative sentence where they use that. And so I can add something that I want to be included every week and add ballot. And once again, this will be included on the ballot for each week. And so, word of the day, two people are called up to give their word of the day sentence, and we can add them to the ballot, and we can publish that as we did before. And again, we can copy the voting link, we can put that into Zoom, but people who have voted, people who have called up the ballot on their phone using the QR code should see the same ballot. Now, part of the point here is we're trying to allow people in the room as well as online to vote. I still might have some people who, for whatever reason, they can't get it working, or their phone's out of charge, or for whatever reason, they're handing me a little piece of paper. So there is this tool down the bottom as well where I can go in, and if I got 2 on paper votes for Grace Halloway, I can add those votes here. And we'll add somebody for word of the day as well. So it's just a little +1 button there. And then when we want to see the vote count, this is where it's going to give us a summary of who the winners are. If there's a tie, that will show that there's a tie. And I can also see how many votes were cast overall, so that I can see maybe I have something where only one person voted. And so that makes it easier to determine the winner, but it's not terribly democratic. So if I glance at this before the meeting is over, I may say, hey, looks like nobody signed, almost nobody voted for table topics. Please go in and vote for table topics so that we can make it a little bit more fair. So these are the vote counters controls. We can go to ballot setup, is where we can add people to the ballot. I can also go in here and vote myself. And, it depends on how you want to do it at your club. Often the way I've tended to do it is that the vote counter doesn't vote except to break ties. But you can see what the ballot will look like for other people. You can go back to the ballot setup. You can go back to see the vote count. And now we can see that there's a tie here. So if I'm an administrator and I'm logged in here on the agenda, I will see at the top of the screen, there's a link to agenda layout. So that is the actual layout design document that we have here that we can modify. Now we can actually open it up in the WordPress editor and manually make changes, but there's also a couple of options up top here, including one of them is I want to have a sidebar, the default layout, and I also want to include the QR code along with the officers list. So I'll say update layout, and now I have a little bit of text explaining how it's supposed to work, and the QR code is now included on my printable agenda. And so we're seeing a preview of it here at the bottom of the screen, but it would look the same if we went now to show agenda. There's my QR code.